It had taken me months to feel human again. Most nights, I came home from work, tossed my boots by the door, and headed straight to the garage. That little concrete box was my sanctuary. Just me, my tools, and the growl of 70s rock bleeding out of a dusty Bluetooth speaker. I'd been rebuilding a '69 Triumph Bonneville from the frame up. She was the only thing that didn't argue, cheat, or ask for half my paycheck. My name's Marcus. I'm 42, live in a small town outside Bloomington, Indiana. Divorced 6 months now. Clarissa took half the savings, our dog, and most of my sanity when she left. But in that garage, I wasn't thinking about lawyers or who got the better side of the bed. I had purpose. Grease under my nails, burn marks on my wrists, and a gas tank I'd just finished sanding down to a perfect mirror shine. Then I heard it. A low rumble outside. I pulled off my work gloves and stepped to the side door. A big-ass moving truck was backing into the driveway across the street. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. At first, I didn't think much of it. That place had been empty for a few weeks. Figured it was some young couple or retirees. But when the driver's side door opened, I froze. Clarissa. Same ponytail, same too expensive sunglasses. She stepped out like she owned the whole damn block. I didn't move, just watched from the shadow of my garage door. Then the passenger door slammed, and out came this guy. Tall, loud, all chest and arms like he never let go of basic training. He barked something at the movers, popped open the back of a jacked-up SUV parked behind the truck, and started hauling boxes like they were pillows. I could already hear the way his boots hit the pavement, like he wanted every step to announce he was here now. Clarissa turned, caught me watching, and smiled. Not a friendly smile. One of those sideways smirks she used to throw at me when I told her I was working late or couldn't afford a second vacation. Like she was already 5 moves ahead, and I was just standing there like an idiot holding a wrench. I backed into the garage and shut the door, heart pounding louder than the stereo. That smirk? I'd seen it during our worst fights. And now it was back, right across the damn street. I didn't even get 3 days of peace. Friday afternoon, I came back from the hardware store with a fresh box of rivets and a 6-pack. Turned onto my street, and there it was, Trent's monster SUV, parked crooked across my driveway like he owned my property too. Half his back bumper was blocking me in. I eased the truck up and rolled the window down. "Hey man," I called out, spotting him shirtless in his front yard, messing with a set of weights like we were in a high school football movie. "Can you move it? You're blocking my drive." He didn't look over at first. Just kept doing bicep curls like I wasn't even there. Then, finally, he glanced up, grinned, and dropped the bar with a clang. "It's just a car, man," he said, voice deep and lazy. "You got enough room." "No, I don't. You're over the line." He shrugged, turned back toward his weights, and said, "Then back up better." That was it. I sat there, engine idling, gripping the wheel like it owed me something. But I didn't say anything else. I just eased the truck onto the grass and rolled past, my tires cutting soft grooves in my own damn yard. The next week, it got worse. I'd just finished repainting the garage door, took my time, made it slick, even used a fine-tip brush around the trim. The next morning, I stepped out with coffee in hand and saw a fresh scrape across the lower panel. Paint torn, exposed metal, and there it was again. That stupid SUV backed up almost flush against the door, like he'd played chicken with it and lost. I didn't storm over. I didn't yell. I just stared at it, jaw tight, then turned back inside. Not worth it, I told myself. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to blow up. I wasn't going to give him the show. But the real hit came a few nights later. I'd spent 3 hours in the garage rewiring the brake lights. Clean job. Tidy lines. I was feeling good. One of those nights where everything clicked. I wiped down the gas tank before I went in, just admiring how far she'd come. Around midnight, I stepped out to toss something in the bin. The porch light was off. Quiet still. But as I walked past the garage, something caught the edge of the motion light. Long, deep scratches. 4 of them, dragged across the right side of the tank like claws. Right through the finish. Through the paint. Down to bare steel. I stood there frozen. Wind blew a little. Somewhere a dog barked. Then I heard the clink of glass. Clarissa. She was sitting on her porch in a robe, wine glass in hand. Ankles crossed like this was just another relaxing evening. Our eyes met. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She smiled, small, smug, satisfied, and took a sip, eyes locked on me. I didn't say a word. My throat burned with it, though. My hands curled up, shaking. I turned, went into the garage, and closed the door behind me. I leaned against it with both palms and just stood there, breathing hard. Could have been her. Could have been him. Could have been both. Didn't matter. They knew what that bike meant to me. That was the point. I grabbed a rag and started wiping down the scratches, but it was pointless. They were deep. Meant to be. Meant to send a message. And I got it. Loud and clear. The next few nights, I barely slept. Trent started blasting music around midnight. Not just loud, wall-shaking, bass-thumping garbage that rattled the glass in my kitchen. I'd be brushing my teeth, and some screamo crap would come screaming through the drywall like we lived in a college dorm. Then he started revving his SUV. Over and over. 2, 3 in the morning, just sitting in the driveway hammering the gas like a kid with a new toy. Clarissa would be outside some nights too, laughing like it was all one big joke. I kept telling myself to wait it out. Maybe they'd get bored. Maybe they'd just move on to the next idiot. Then the beer cans started showing up. Crushed ones in my flower bed. One tossed right into the middle of the driveway. And one, half full, lying on its side by my porch steps, soaking into the wood like a stain I couldn't scrub out. That was it. I walked across the street just after 10 one night, while Trent was out front tossing weights again, and Clarissa sat on the porch like she was royalty. I kept my voice level. Look, I don't care what your problem is, I said. But the music, the revving, the trash, it ends tonight. Trent wiped his forehead with the bottom of his shirt, showing off his six-pack like anyone gave a damn. You always this uptight, neighbor? Just stop. He smiled. It's just noise, man. You act like I burned down your house. Clarissa leaned forward in her chair, wine glass in hand. God, Marcus, you're so sensitive. Still crying over your little scrap metal project? I turned toward her. You're real proud of yourself, huh? She stood up. You never could handle things not going your way. Same old Marcus. Still pretending to be a man when you can't even finish a garage toy. I felt that hit, deep. Straight from our marriage, from the arguments I tried to forget. You never finish anything you start, Marcus. She used to say it every time I came home tired. Every time I didn't jump when she barked. I didn't answer this time. I just stared her down, then turned and walked back to my side. I wasn't giving them another second. The next morning, I found the wires. I'd left the garage locked up tight, bike covered. But someone had been in there. The main wiring harness, sliced open. Clean. Deliberate. The rear signals were yanked loose, and the ignition switch was twisted like someone tried to rip it right out of the mount. I stood there staring at it, blood buzzing in my ears. That bike was all I had left that felt like mine. I stormed out of the garage, across the yard, and into the street. Trent was out again, washing that damn SUV with a hose like it was a Ferrari. You were in my garage, I said. He didn't even blink. Just smiled like he was proud of it. I was asleep, man. Maybe your little machine fell apart on its own. You think this is funny? I think you should go play with your toys before someone else breaks them. Clarissa laughed from the porch without even looking up from her phone. I didn't punch him. I didn't scream. I turned and walked back, fists tight, heart pounding. This wasn't going away. He wasn't backing off. And she was loving every second of it. Fine. They wanted a show? I'd give them one. It was time to stop reacting and start planning. By the time I made it back inside, I already had Joey's number pulled up. We hadn't talked in maybe a year, but when he answered and I told him what was going on, he didn't even hesitate. Hell yes, I'll help, he said. I've been waiting for a reason to use some of this crap I bought off a liquidation auction. You got power in that garage? Yeah. You got vengeance in your heart? I cracked a smile. Plenty. He showed up the next afternoon with 2 duffel bags and a grin like Christmas came early. Joey was one of those guys who'd been taking apart toasters since he was 12 just to see how they worked. We went to trade school together back in the day. I went mechanical, he went electrical. Now he ran his own business installing security systems and rigging pranks for college frat houses. First thing, he said, digging through his bag. We're going to make sure your cameras don't miss a thing. We mounted 2 motion-activated cams, one inside the garage, pointed right at the bike, and one on the corner of the roof with a perfect view of the driveway. Full night vision, real-time alerts, all feeding to my phone. No more blind spots. Then came the fun part. Here, he said, handing me a little black box with a red toggle. We mount this under the tarp. If someone lifts it without disarming it first, boom, alarm goes off, smoke flare shoots out the side. Won't that fry the wiring? Nah, it's dummy flared. Harmless, but loud enough to wake your neighbors and embarrassing enough to make a grown man cry. We spent hours wiring everything up. Joey ran fake lines across the walls, obvious enough to look important, useless in reality. We zip-tied a few random boards with blinking LEDs to make it look legit. I added my own touch, a no trespassing, electrical work in progress sign I staked right outside the garage door. By the time the sun dipped, we were both drenched in sweat and stinking of solder. Joey stepped back, hands on his hips, admiring the chaos we'd created. Next time he tries something, he said, wiping his face with his sleeve, he's gonna piss himself. I nodded, watching the camera feed on my phone. Everything was online. Every angle covered. I owe you. You owe me beer. And a front row seat when this jackass eats smoke. He left around 9. I stood in the garage for a while, lights off, just listening. The street was quiet. For now, I sat by the window that night, phone in hand, eyes bouncing between the live feed and the driveway across the street. Clarissa's porch light flicked on. Trent stepped out with a beer and started pacing like he was bored. Restless. Like a dog that hadn't bitten anything in a while. Good. Let him get curious. I was ready. I was still up when it happened. The street had gone quiet around midnight. I'd killed the lights, cracked the garage door just enough to see the driveway, and sat in the shadows with my phone in hand. The feed from the inside cam was full screen. Bike was covered. Everything looked still. Then at 2:07 a.m., the motion alert buzzed. My thumb shot to the screen. I tapped the feed, heart racing. There he was. Trent. Hoodie pulled low, sleeves over his hands. He came in through the side gate, all quiet, like this wasn't his first time sneaking into someone's garage. He ducked near the wall, paused at the door, and pulled something from his pocket, probably a tension wrench or just a flathead. Either way, I saw him jimmy the lock and slip inside like he'd done it before. I watched his silhouette move across the frame. His steps were slow, careful. He crept up to the bike, reached out, and grabbed the edge of the tarp. And that was it. The second he lifted the cover, bang. Screeching alarm blared through the speaker hidden in the corner rafters. Red smoke exploded out from under the tarp, right in his face. The flash made the camera pulse white for a second. Trent stumbled back, coughing, arms flailing like he'd walked into a beehive. He tripped over the oil pan I'd left near the bench, slipped on the stained floor, and slammed sideways into a shelf full of old tools. Wrenches, socket sets, and a busted vise hit the concrete with a chorus of crashes. I stepped outside, didn't say a word, just stood in the driveway in my t-shirt and boots, arms crossed, phone still streaming. Trent burst out of the garage a second later, hacking and wiping soot from his face, hoodie streaked with smoke stains and dirt. He looked like someone had dropped him down a chimney. Clarissa was on their porch, barefoot, robe open at the legs, a cigarette dangling from her fingers. She'd heard the alarm too. At first, she laughed, loud and sharp. God, Trent, what the hell were you? It's all on tape. I yelled across the street. She froze. The laugh died halfway out of her mouth. Her cigarette slipped between her fingers and hit the porch. Trent spun around, wild-eyed, breathing hard like a winded dog. You think this is funny? He shouted. You think you're smart, huh? I held up the phone. I think I just caught a felony on video. He opened his mouth again, then stopped. Something clicked in his brain. Maybe he realized how bad it looked. Breaking and entering. Tampering with property. Smoke flares going off in his face while the camera caught every second. He turned and stormed up their driveway, cursing the whole way. Clarissa didn't follow. She just stood there, arms crossed now, silent. I walked back inside and locked the door. Then I sat down, plugged in the external drive, and uploaded every second of that footage. I made 3 backups: cloud, hard drive, and USB. Even emailed a copy to Joey, just in case. I wasn't smiling. Not yet. But I was getting there. By sunrise, they'd already hit back. I opened the front door around 7, coffee in hand, and nearly stepped on a handful of roofing nails scattered across my driveway. Not loose, tossed. Deliberate. Sharp ends pointed up. A couple were jammed between the treads of my tires. I didn't touch them. Just snapped a few photos and swept them into a bucket. Then I went to dump the trash and nearly gagged. Something was rotting in the bin. I pulled the lid open and jumped back. Dead raccoon. Stuffed in there like a threat. flies already buzzing around its bloated body. Its eyes were gone. No way that was coincidence. I checked the camera feeds. Nothing. Trent had crept around the blind spots, stuck to the side yard, avoided the trip zones. Smart enough to stay off the main angles, but not smart enough to keep his rage quiet. I didn't bother calling the cops. Not yet. There wasn't enough to pin him. But I did send the pics to Joey with one line: he's escalating. By the afternoon, the whispers started. Mrs. Danvers, 2 doors down, barely looked at me when I waved. Then I saw her on Clarissa's porch an hour later, nodding along while Clarissa fake whispered with dramatic hand gestures and a perfectly timed frown. The next day, Brielle's dad didn't return my wave either. No small talk, just a stiff nod and a closed garage. I heard one of the teens across the street mutter, "That's the guy who thinks people are breaking into his garage," while skateboarding past with his friends. Clarissa was poisoning the well, calling me paranoid, saying I had a breakdown after the divorce, telling anyone who'd listen that I was setting dangerous booby traps and filming her family for no reason. By Tuesday, I got mail from a law office. Trent's name on the envelope. Cease and desist letter. Full of legal fluff about endangering a neighbor with hazardous devices and creating a hostile domestic environment. I laughed reading it. Not because it was funny, but because it was so damn desperate. He got smoked out and caught on camera. Now he was trying to play victim. I texted Joey a photo of the letter. He wrote back, "Tell him to cease and desist being a little bitch." But still, the tension was different now. Sharper. They weren't just messing with my stuff. They were going after my reputation, trying to isolate me in my own damn neighborhood. And the worst part? They were getting smarter. Sneakier. No cameras. No evidence. Just enough to make it hell without crossing a clear line. I stood in my garage that night, staring at the Triumph. Half rebuilt. Wiring reconnected. Paint still scratched. This wasn't over. They wouldn't stop until I had something that couldn't be denied. No smoke. No pranks. No tricks. Just the truth. And I was going to get it. I was wiping down the gas tank when I saw it. A fine white crust around the cap. At first, I thought maybe it was dust or leftover polish. But when I twisted it open, the smell hit me. Sweet. Wrong. I dipped a finger in and touched the residue near the edge. Gritty. Sugar. I froze. Heart pounding, throat dry. Sugar in a gas tank was a death sentence. That engine I'd spent months rebuilding? Toast. I grabbed the flashlight and looked closer. Little crystals floating at the top of the fuel, already starting to dissolve. Thousands of dollars. Dozens of nights. Ruined. I didn't scream. Didn't slam anything. I just walked straight to the workbench, pulled out my phone, and pulled up the feed. Backed it up to midnight. Nothing. Then 1:12 a.m. The motion alert tripped. He was careful this time. Hoodie on, sleeves pulled tight. But right before he reached the bike, he stopped and yanked the gloves off. Probably needed better grip. Big mistake. There he was, face clear as day in the camera glow, looking dead into the tank as he funneled sugar inside with a rolled piece of paper. Took his time, too. No rush. He even looked around and smirked before slipping out the way he came. I downloaded the file and made 3 backups. Then I called the cops. When the cruiser rolled up 40 minutes later, I met them at the curb. "You got video?" the officer asked. Crystal clear. They watched it twice. Said nothing during, just exchanged a look. I handed them a copy on a flash drive. "Stay put," one of them said. "We'll handle it." I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, and watched the show. They knocked on Clarissa's door. Trent answered like he was expecting a delivery. Then saw the uniforms and tensed up instantly. Voices rose. Trent tried to talk his way through it, arms wide like he was confused. One officer spoke calm and slow. The other stepped closer with cuffs ready. Clarissa came out in her robe, shouting before they even read him his rights. "This is harassment. That video's fake. He edited it, you idiots." One of the cops turned toward her. "Ma'am, step back. It's a setup. He's been obsessed with us for months." Trent was yelling now, too. "I didn't pour anything. That's not even. This is bullsh." The cuffs clicked shut. Clarissa screamed like someone shot her. "Are you really arresting him? You're arresting a veteran over some loser's motorcycle?" I didn't say a word, just leaned against my porch post and watched as they walked Trent down the steps and into the back of the cruiser. Clarissa locked eyes with me. Her face wasn't shocked. It was pure rage, like I'd broken some rule she thought she was in charge of. I didn't smile. But I didn't look away either. I woke up choking. Smoke. Thick. Chemical. Biting. The kind that burns your throat before you're even fully conscious. I bolted out of bed and ran to the window. Orange light pulsed against the side of the house. The garage. I didn't think, just tore through the hallway, grabbed the garden hose on the porch, and sprinted barefoot into the yard. The side door was belching smoke. I yanked it open and got hit with a wave of heat that nearly dropped me. Flames curled up from the back wall, licking the ceiling, dancing across the bike. My bike. I aimed the hose and let it blast, heart hammering in my ears, eyes stinging. Took me 5 straight minutes to kill the flames, coughing the whole time, slipping on scorched oil and melted plastic. My hands shook the entire time. When it was over, the garage was black. The bike? Gone. Nothing left but a warped chrome frame and twisted rubber. Tools ruined. Shelves collapsed. Burn marks up the wall, smoke damage all over the ceiling. I stumbled back into the yard, drenched in sweat and water, lungs burning. Then I checked the cameras. Nothing. Every feed was dead. I ran the lines. The cords had been cut, sharp and clean, right at the back junction box. Someone knew what they were doing. They'd planned this. That afternoon, I was sitting on the porch, empty coffee mug in hand, when Brielle walked up the driveway holding a small silver laptop. She looked nervous, but determined. "I have something," she said. "You might want to see it." I brought her inside. She popped open the file, and I couldn't breathe. There it was, clear drone footage from about 100 feet up. Time-stamped. Night vision on. Clarissa, in a hoodie, crossing my backyard just after 3 a.m. She crouched beside the garage, pulled something from her bag, and poured it through the side vent. Then she lit a long match and shoved it in. Fire bloomed instantly. She didn't even run, just walked back the same way she came. Brielle stared at the screen. "She egged our car 2 weeks ago after my mom asked her to keep it down," she said quietly. "I've been flying this thing for fun, but I got tired of watching her get away with everything." I nodded slowly, jaw tight. "You just saved everything." I drove straight to the station. No calls. No warnings. By nightfall, Clarissa was in cuffs on her front lawn, screaming like a banshee while 2 deputies walked her down the steps. Flashing lights lit up the street. Her hands were behind her back, hair wild, face red. "You set me up," she shouted. "You planted that video. That little drone freak edited it." No one listened. They didn't have to. The footage didn't lie. I stood on my porch again, same spot as before, arms crossed, silent. That's when Trent came charging across the lawn, fists clenched, eyes locked on me. "You smug son of a bitch," he roared. "You think this is over?" He hit the property line just as another deputy tackled him mid-sprint, slammed him down in the grass, and cuffed him before he could throw a punch. "Restraining order, dumbass," the officer muttered. "Learn what it means." Trent growled, straining against the cuffs, face twisted. Clarissa kept screaming until they shoved her in the back of a cruiser. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. They'd finally crossed the line. And this time, they weren't walking away from it. The flashing lights were long gone, but the scorch marks weren't. Weeks passed, but I hadn't touched the garage. Half the roof was caved in. The back wall still smelled like smoke. I kept meaning to start clearing it out, but every time I stepped inside, my chest tightened. Nothing left in there but ash and bad memories. The neighborhood got real quiet after the fire. Clarissa and Trent? Barely seen. No more porch wine. No more loud music. No more revving at 2 a.m. Their SUV sat collecting dust. A few times, I saw the curtains move when I walked past, but that was it. Like they'd gone underground. Then one night, I was sitting on the porch, sipping a beer and staring at the burned-out shell, when I heard heavy boots hitting pavement fast. I looked up. Trent was storming across the street. Face red, chest puffed, arms swinging. He stopped right at the edge of my lawn, just outside the restraining line. Hands clenched, breathing hard. "You destroyed my life," he barked. "You smug piece of shit. You think you won?" I didn't move. "You think getting her locked up makes you some kind of hero? You ruined everything." He took a step forward, just one, then stopped himself. Smart enough to remember the last tackle. Then another voice cut through the air. "Bullshit, Trent." We both turned. Dean, Clarissa's kid. Maybe 16, maybe 17. He'd been quiet since they moved in. Headphones on, skateboard under his arm, never said much to anyone. Now he was standing on their front step, arms crossed, voice loud and clear. You told her to do it. Don't lie. Trent froze. Dean walked down the porch steps slowly. You're the one who said Marcus needed to be put in his place. You said if she burned his bike, it'd shut him up. I heard it. You screamed it in the kitchen. Trent turned toward him, eyes wide. Get back inside. No, Dean said. I'm tired of watching you screw everything up and then act like it's not your fault. Don't talk to me like that, Trent snapped. I'm still. You're nothing. Dean cut in, voice sharp. All you do is break things and blame other people. The street was dead silent. Trent's mouth opened, but no words came. He looked between me and Dean like he was trying to pick which one of us to swing at first. Then he lowered his arms. Ungrateful little bastard, he muttered, turning away. Dean didn't flinch. Trent crossed the street slower than he came, steps dragging, head down. He disappeared through the front door without another word. Dean looked at me. We didn't say anything, just nodded once. The next morning, a for sale sign went up in their yard. 2 days later, a real estate SUV pulled into the driveway. By the end of the week, the blinds were drawn, and the house was listed online. They were leaving. Finally, they were gone by mid-spring. The SUV disappeared first, then the curtains. Then one quiet Saturday morning, a moving truck pulled up, and that was it. No goodbye, no drama, just silence. The for sale sign stayed up a few weeks after, but eventually it vanished too. Empty house, empty driveway. Felt like the whole block exhaled. I stood in my garage with the door wide open, sun pouring in across the floor I'd finally cleared and repainted. The back wall was new, clean, solid. I'd replaced the roof myself, beam by beam. Tools hung in perfect rows. Nothing burned, nothing broken. And in the middle of the floor stood a new frame, raw steel, smooth welds. The beginning of a new build. Same make, different spirit. Most nights, I'd lose track of time working on it, just like before. Except now, nobody was watching. Nobody was taunting from across the street. It was quiet again, the kind of quiet that didn't feel like a warning. Brielle dropped off a plate of chocolate chip cookies one afternoon. Said her mom appreciated whatever the hell you did to get them out of here. I just laughed and handed her back the plate with a socket wrench I'd borrowed last winter. Dean started waving more. Sometimes he'd linger near the sidewalk like he wanted to say something, but never pushed it. Then one morning, he crossed the street, holding something wrapped in a rag. I was digging through the garage, he said, holding it out. Found this. It's from Trent's pile. Figured you could use it more than the trash guys. It was a chrome tailpipe, perfect condition. Right fit, right length. I turned it over in my hands. This is good metal, I said. Thanks. He shrugged. Better on your bike than buried in our yard. Seriously, I mean it. He nodded once, then walked off. No drama, no awkwardness. I watched him go, then looked back at the frame in front of me. It still had a long way to go, bare bones, no wheels, no tank, but it didn't feel like work this time. It felt like a start. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't doing it to prove a point. Wasn't building out of spite or anger. Just building. Reclaiming peace, one bolt at a time.